And Alexander wept because there was no more world left to conquer. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast today. Long-time Hughezy Mark, big supporter of Irish politics. Glenn Gilberty, the greatest heel in wrestling today, Disco Inferno. How the fuck are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm a fan of Irish politics.
Yeah.
Why am I a fan of Irish politics?
Well, I've got a list of Irish politicians here that you're a big fan of. You might
Who
know
are
them.
they? Let me hear some of them.
There's Ray Pist.
Nah.
He's the
Okay.
babyface sexual assaulter.
Okay.
We've got Luke Kimia. He's the heel Roman Reigns troll.
Okay. So these are all parody politicians.
No, these are real people, and
I
you
don't.
like.
I don't. I don't think it does not sound like real people.
Well,
Leukemia is a leukemia was actually one of the jobbers that I created that was left on the cutting room floor in the booking meetings at WCW.
well, I heard that there was a tag team you tried to pitch, and it was the first ever intergender tag team, and it was Lou and Anita Scunt.
No, that's not my idea. That was probably Terry Taylor.
Well, here's one. Let's see if you can help me with this. The surname is Oakham,
Okay.
and the first name is Icewall.
Oswald Oakham.
No, the first name is Icewall.
Icewall Oakham.
Oh, you swallow cum.
Oh, Jesus.
Anyway, let's get on with it. I'm one of those creative control boys, but of course, Disco. The big news at the minute that's on the news, well, in the wrestling world, is Dean Ambrose did an interview with Jericho, who owes you that apology, by the way. I think it's disgusting he hasn't apologized.
I agree.
So the big news is that Ambrose is saying all this shit, or should I say, Johnny Moxley, about Vince never did this and Vince said this, and of course, believe it or not, all the trolls instantly believe him without any sort of backup. So, what is it like for you, as someone that actually works in the industry, that the marks think that they know more about than the actual industry workers?
Well, I just think it's funny that everybody's that there's no pushback on Dean Ambrose. That just shows you how the echo chamber in wrestling today is so prominent that the online fans are so unified mostly in their belief system that nobody's pushing back on Dean Ambrose, especially after he did the Austin podcast. And the Austin podcast, he just lied right to the guy. And you could see Austin getting visibly upset because he knew that Ambrose was working him. Like, if you go back and watch that podcast, it's like, the guy's just lying through his teeth to the guy. And you can see Austin, but all of a sudden now it's like Dean's doing a talk at Jericho because everybody loves AEW and WWE's terrible. It's just like there's no pushback on anything he's saying. They're just like, this is gospel. I don't know. I just think there should be more scrutiny involved.
I think that the problem is that people are so obsessed with being anti-WWE that Shane McMahon could say Vince slaughters unicorns, and the nerds would go, "I knew it! I knew Vince did that!" And they just think there's nothing to back up what Dean Ambrose said.
Plus, the marks are like this is the biggest thing the marks don't understand. And then this is the part of the echo chamber stuff is they think that that wrestlers, if they can script their own interviews, the show would be much better. Okay, that might be true, but at some point these guys have to show a history of cutting good promos to begin with before you start talking about you need creative freedom. Because my whole thing is you sit there these guys, you see them cut promos, okay, but actually you don't see them cut promos. They cut their own promos, and they're not that good. Because let's be honest, Vince McMahon would be giving creative freedom to guys that were cutting good promos or could cut good promos. So I'm not saying that the scripted lines they're giving them are any good because they're terrible, but the alternative, there's been really no proof that any of the like Dean Ambrose or anything. I mean, Dean's cut a few good promos before, but it's not like this guy's like Austin or The Rock out there. You know what I'm saying? So these guys are talking about like if we had free, we try to rewrite promos. Like, okay, but like, how do we know some of the stuff that has not been rewritten, and they're out there like they changed the promo themselves. They did it. It was still terrible. It's like, I mean, there's this whole thing. The reason everybody hates WWE is because wrestler Joey Janela talked about this. This is like and this is kind of like how the wrestling fans are these days. Is that everybody's one big happy family right now in wrestling? Like all the wrestlers are in it together. They're a family. They're taking pictures with each other after they're out of character. They're out. They're doing all this and the fans like that because they're being just like them on social media and stuff and everything. And it's like everybody's all happy and there's one big happy family and everything. So since everybody's all in this together, the fans, the boys, and the wrestlers are kind of like the marks too. So everything. You have to find an antagonist, and the antagonist is the WWE. That like all these people would wrestling would be as popular as it was back in the Attitude Era if it wasn't for WWE scripting bad promos. Like, and you look at the roster, like you look at these guys that wrestle on Raw, AEW, like all the Ring of Honor everywhere. And I'm sorry if you grew up watching the Attitude Era, like watching during the period of time when it's saying these guys are all be mid carders. Like there's not a lot of top. We're trying to pretend that there's a lot of top guys in wrestling. There's not. There's like hardly any top guys in wrestling anymore, like big stars.
Except currently on Impact in the feud with Tessa Blanchard. Am I right?
I'm not even a big star. I'm just a guy that knows. Like here's the thing. This is the funniest thing about what I'm doing on Impact, is that. There's conversations, there's telephone conversations that you have with people. You run stuff by each other, and you come up with an idea. Yeah, let's do that, right? And so I go on TV, and I'm just getting like the way I look at like the stuff I'm doing Impact. I'm a part-time performer. I've got a job, and I make pretty good money in my job. So I'm never going to quit my job to get back into wrestling. Okay, I'll still do wrestling, but my income and my job and the fact that it's such an easy job, I can't quit that. It's like, I could probably wrestle full time and make a little bit more money than I'm doing right now, but the wear and tear on my body would be ridiculous. But so I can do part-time stuff. But when I look at the stuff that like I do on Impact, these are like challenging situations that like not a lot of guys would agree to do. And the way I look at when I'm a performer, I'm given a script. I'm given something to do. I'm told what to do. I'm getting paid to do it. So I'm just trying to do whatever I do the best I possibly can. Okay, and I know, like, I can try things to get heat because I see what other people aren't doing, and I just know what to do. I'm a professional. So, I look at like the stuff I do. I don't look at it as like some great, incredible stuff I'm doing or. I'm the best heel in the business. I just look as like I'm looking at the climate of wrestling fans today and the wrestling media and the wrestling social media. To me, it's a very easy fan base to trigger. They're very easy to piss off. It's simplistic. It's like so easy, and I go out and I do it, and it's like I get all this heat, and I'm like, everybody should be watching what I'm doing and say like, hey, it is this easy to get heat. You have to be able to embrace the fact that people don't like you. And it shouldn't bother you that people don't like you because they don't like your character. And I think a lot of guys today in wrestling, I think a lot of fans that they don't like not being liked. Everybody wants to be liked because we are one big happy family in wrestling. Everybody's all happy, and so it's like being disliked is kind of like look frowned upon. Like, well, the wrestling needs heels. The reason there's not a lot of baby faces today, there's not a lot of over baby faces, is because over the past 10 years, there haven't been any really good heels for them to beat, to elevate them to the next level. Because, like, who hated people out? Like, who have these guys gone over that was like a really big heel that really got them to the next level? And like you look, it's like I can't recall a situation where it's happened where a dastardly strong heel got beat by a baby face and took that baby face to the next level. is because nobody knows how to be disliked anymore. Everybody wants to be liked. Everybody's like, so you're not, the baby faces are not advancing because they're not beating anybody that people don't like. Everybody likes the heels and the baby faces now. So it's like, it's a weird, wrestling's a very weird paradigm right now. And it's, I don't know. I just see it as it's a very easy business right now to heel in. Okay, and if it's shocking to me that people have not embraced that.
But with Ambrose, it's really a case of he can cut all the promos he wants, but the fact is, in the ring, he stinks. And
I wouldn't say he stinks. I'd say he's typical of your. He's typical of like your indie darling. That like me, he got a lot of pub on the indies. Steve Regal liked him at NXT or the power. Like Regal liked him. So if Regal likes you, you get that endorsement from the wrestling community or the fans and stuff. Oh, he must be great, because Regal likes him. But I wouldn't say he stinks. I just don't think he's not a game changer. His work is not like his punches look terrible. He doesn't he still has a lot of details in his work that are not good.
He's not a game changer. He's a channel changer.
I wouldn't say he's a channel. He cuts. You know what he does pretty well? For a guy that talks fast, he cuts a pretty good promo for a fast talker. Like a lot of wrestlers have to cut their promos and speak very fluently, so they don't stumble over the words. He could cut a good promo sometimes when he's talking fast, which is difficult to do for most guys. I'll give him that.
But see, for me as a legitimate NWO member, I think that when it comes to Ambrose's fucking promos, walking around in a circle and pacing about isn't going to make shit content seem better.
Well, he looks like he's trying to act like a crazy guy instead of actually being like a guy that's kind of crazy. To me, he just comes across as an introvert. A very quiet, like his character should be more like Raven as opposed to Brian Pillman, which is like they tried to make him out of. He's not a convincing Brian Pillman type crazy guy. He's a convincing Raven type crazy guy because he's kind of an introvert. Doesn't seem like he seems like a little socially awkward, kind of like he's what I'm saying. So I think that would suit his character better.
I think he needs to embrace his receding hairline and become the Nicolas Cage.
Well, he's wrestling Joey Janela coming up, and Joey Janela is the better worker out of those two.
Yeah,
I think Joey Janela is far more entertaining than Dean Ambrose is.
Do you think that nickname he had, the Lunatic Fringe, was a rib on the fact that his hairline was receding?
No, I never thought of that, but it's possible. But the Lunatic Fringe, he never came across as a lunatic to me.
Yeah.
I mean, a lunatic does crazy things. He just kind of did things where he looked like he was acting crazy for the cameras. That's what it looked like to me.
Well, speaking of crazy, I think it's fair to say you're one of the more infamous / controversial podcasters out there. And regardless of what the critics want to say, you're a podcasting draw. So have you ever thought of starting your own solo podcast called The Last Dance with Glenn Gilberti?
No, I've not.
That could be pretty...
I don't like doing. I like doing it I like interaction as opposed to doing it by myself. I could probably do it myself. I mean, if Mark Madden can do 3 hours of sports talk every day, I can do a 1 hour podcast by myself. I'm sure, but I like doing it with Conan. I like doing it with Vince. I'd have to do too much work to do my own podcast. It seems like prepping and stuff. I just like showing up and just getting into discussion
and stirring it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I got one of the things I love about Keeping the 100, or as I call it, the Disco Inferno show. You always love to give off about social justice warriors, and I hate those cunts. And recently, their latest target has been Quentin Tarantino.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta say, what do you think about the fact that now, despite the fact that he wrote things like Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill 1 and 2, Jackie Brown, that now the social justice warriors are going after him for sexism, because apparently in his new film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that Wolf of Wall Street girl doesn't speak much.
Right. Well, that was, I mean, you can extrapolate that into a bigger issue, but that was news because one woman asked him the question. You know, and maybe she represents